Considering the success of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, it's very likely that Nintendo and Illumination will prepare a sequel to continue the story. Naturally, that has us viewers thinking about how a sequel will go. What's going to happen now? What will be the main conflict? Who or what will be behind the cause of said conflict? There are many questions we can ask. After some interesting discussions with viewers in the comment section of my video review for the original movie, I was thinking a lot more about what we currently know and what can possibly happen in the sequel. It made me think about how the plot can be written. If you've seen my video review, you may recall certain parts of the movie including both post-credit scenes, the one you see after the fun Mario themed credits, and the other after the traditional style credits. If you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out my movie review before watching the rest of this video. I talk about certain parts of the original movie including both post-credit scenes there. For your convenience, I'll link you to it through a YouTube card that should pop up in the top right corner of this video. I'll put a link in the description as well. If you'd like to stay up to date on my content, or if you like Nintendo games, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell. Like I mentioned in my review, I'm aiming to reach 200 subscribers by New Year's Day 2024. The channel really grew since the last video thanks to you all. I'm super grateful to you guys who recently joined and to those who have been around for some time. Lastly, I assume you've already seen the Super Mario Bros. Movie given that this video is going to focus on its sequel. But just in case, I also recommend watching the original movie in its entirety before continuing here. And that's it. Now, let's get on with the meat of this video. So, the Super Mario Bros. Movie ends with the Mario brothers living and getting used to things in the Mushroom Kingdom. For those of you who've already seen my review, I'll quickly recap the two post-credit scenes to refresh your memory. After the animated credits, we learn that Bowser is now a captive of the Mushroom Kingdom and he's locked in what honestly looks like a bird cage. He's still small due to the aftermath of Peach forcing him to consume a mini mushroom. But what hasn't changed about Bowser is the fact that he still sims over Peach despite having been directly rejected. Bowser's fury, no pun intended, toward the Mushroom Kingdom also hasn't changed. And after the rest of the credits, we return to the Brooklyn Underground to discover a Yoshi egg just about to hatch. Aside from the fact that it ended up here after the final fight, we don't have much context regarding the importance of this Yoshi egg, but we can assume that the main purpose of this teaser is to showcase that it's here, and Yoshi ought to have a main role in the sequel. That's pretty much all we know about the movie's current state of events. I recently wondered how this newborn Yoshi will play a role in the sequel. Given that the original movie referenced numerous Mario games, it wouldn't surprise me if the sequel will have references to Yoshi games. Of all the titles I know of, Yoshi's Island comes to mind first. Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, originally made for the SNES, shares a similar conflict with the original movie. That's evident in the beginning of the game. Mario and Luigi get separated, except unlike the movie, they're infants barely able to think for themselves. That's why it's up to the Yoshi tribe to reunite the brothers and safely return them to their parents. Another title that struck something with me in particular was Yoshi's Island DS. The conflict here is the same, but now you're not limited to escorting just baby Mario. You can switch to other baby characters, including Peach, DK, Bowser, and even Wario, each of them having their own unique abilities that allow you to progress through the levels and rescue baby Luigi. With the existence of these games, I thought there was potential for them to influence the sequel of the Super Mario Bros. Movie. We will get to learn more details no one was able to confirm before. I'll elaborate more on that later. Now that Yoshis are pretty much guaranteed to have a lot of screen time in the sequel, I asked myself, what if the plot acknowledges the Yoshi's Island games? That means Mario and Luigi have been to the Mushroom Kingdom before, but only as babies. The original movie made it look like Mario and Luigi had no idea what they were getting into upon their accidental discovery of the warp pipe. If this really isn't their first time in the world on the other side, then it makes sense as to why they don't remember any of it. They grew up in our world, and if Peach, DK, and Bowser were also babies at the time, they shouldn't really remember anything either. And before I dive into any more detail, let me warn you that I'm going to tie the Mario movie universe with those Yoshi's Island games. That means there will be spoilers for both of them. Thought I'd quickly point that out for anyone wanting to play those games to the end first and haven't already. If that's the case, feel free to save this video to your watch later playlist for whenever you're ready to return and continue. If we were to have a sequel sharing more detail about Mario and Luigi's babyhood and beyond, that means their parents should have important roles too. From what I currently know of, we never really saw or knew much about Mario and Luigi's parents before the original movie's release. Now we're able to officially confirm what their parents officially look like according to Nintendo. But before we had that, the only game I do recall featuring the bros' parents in some way is actually the first Yoshi's Island game. After you defeat the final boss and reunite the brothers, the narrative continues and the end credits will begin. Here, we can see the stork resuming his journey to deliver baby Mario and Luigi to their parents' house. After the credits, he arrives in the neighborhood where they live. From what it looks like, they're still clearly in the Mushroom Kingdom and not Brooklyn or Italy, given the houses are Well, mushrooms. When the front door opens, we see what looks like a human mother and father. We don't see their faces though, only silhouettes of their bodies and then their hands holding up the baby bros. That's the last thing you see before the game officially ends. It isn't impossible for Nintendo to write the sequel's plot while acknowledging the original Yoshi's Island game. I can see it going like this. First, the baby Yoshi hatches in the Brooklyn sewers. I assume the pipe to the Mushroom Kingdom still works because it seems like Mario and Luigi now reside there. Since it ought to be nearby, maybe baby Yoshi will end up warping to the Mushroom Kingdom too, or the bros come across him there shortly afterwards. If that's the case, I'm hoping Luigi will be the one to discover him first for one specific reason.
Mama? Mama Luigi?
Anyway, when Peach learns about baby Yoshi, she ought to believe that he got separated from his tribe. Therefore, she'll task the brothers to journey to their location and reunite little Yoshi with his own kind. Mario, Luigi, and baby Yoshi ought to have quite a journey to the Yoshi's location. Upon their arrival, some adult Yoshis there will recognize the brothers because of their hats and nose shapes. That's an opportunity to learn more about the brothers' babyhood right then and there. The Yoshis will clearly recall the memories of reuniting baby Mario and Luigi. So in this story, the brothers were actually born in the Mushroom Kingdom. It's just their family relocated shortly afterwards for some reason. The idea is on the same track as what Po from Kung Fu Panda experiences in the third movie of that franchise. He and us, the audience, learn more about his family and a hidden village of pandas when he reunites with his biological father.
What? It's like looking in a fat mirror.
So now, that brings us to why that relocation happened. In my story, the brothers were too young to remember anything before Brooklyn, but if they were to find out they had actually been there during infanthood because of the Yoshis, then that means their parents would not have told them anything about it at all. Why not? Let's refer back to the last cutscene in the original Yoshi's Island game. Here, the stork just leaves them by the front door before their parents could answer. We could assume that they had no idea the stork's journey to their home was interrupted. They had no idea that their children were rescued by a tribe of Yoshis. But if we want to have things make more sense for the movie, I can imagine Nintendo retconning certain events. Maybe their parents do learn about the attack on the stork. Maybe they do learn about the treachery the Yoshis had to bypass to rescue baby Mario and Luigi. That information ought to be enough to make them think that it's too dangerous to stay in the Mushroom Kingdom. Someone is after their children. That'll be why they decide to relocate to the real world shortly afterwards, for the young brother's sake, so they can have a normal childhood and grow up to live normal lives. With no intention of returning, they needed to get accustomed to life in our world. Maybe their parents have had help from other relatives and they've since been living in Brooklyn as one big happy Italian-American family. Like I mentioned earlier, I said that the sequel can potentially reveal hidden details about the first movie that we weren't able to see then. With an outline like this, I imagine 3 things we saw would have a little more context now. 1. Mario's dad said that everyone loves mushrooms as he enjoys them on his pasta. It initially seems like he's just saying that so Mario would shut up and eat them. But if he used to live in the Mushroom Kingdom, maybe he's just used to that feeling and it carried on after relocating to Brooklyn. Everyone in the Mushroom Kingdom ought to love mushrooms. I mean, toads are mushrooms. Imagine a toad that doesn't like mushrooms. Also, some of Mario's family wasn't very supportive of his decision to quit his day job and start a plumbing business with Luigi, especially his dad, saying he's nuts for doing that. They clearly believed Mario was making a foolish decision, but maybe Mario's dad was being dissuasive because he really wanted to protect his boys. He wouldn't want his son to leave the normal life he intended for him because he really doesn't want to see him put in danger again. 2. Luigi's childhood memories took place in what looks like Brooklyn, or at least our world as we know it. He's not a newborn here, he's more like a toddler. I think this scene in the original movie was supposed to showcase that Luigi always had Mario to stand up for him for as long as he can remember. And early memories are what I'm focused on here. I mentioned earlier that baby Mario and Luigi likely wouldn't remember anything as newborns. Since humans can only recall little to nothing during their infant stage, memories of Yoshi's or anything from back then could be either buried in Luigi's mind or simply non-existent. Luigi getting bullied here doesn't foreshadow any childhood memories with Yoshi's or Kamek. 3. In the one and only scene where we actually see adult Yoshis, a pink one looks like he's eyeballing the apple that Mario is holding as he passes by. We can presume that, or maybe he was actually one of the Yoshis who helped reunite baby Mario and Luigi way back then. Maybe this Yoshi recognized Mario's iconic red cap he wore even as an infant and was actually wondering if he was seeing the same person, just all grown up now. It'd be pretty cool if the sequel were to occasionally reference a scene from the first movie, or showcase it again like a memory from another's point of view to reveal hidden details. Now, what if Mario were to return to his parents' apartment in Brooklyn for some explanation? He should be curious as to why his parents didn't tell him about the relocation. I imagine that he and us, the audience, will get to learn more about his mom and dad here. They will share the story of when they first opened the front door to meet their babies and why they relocated. In that time, maybe Mario will also learn about something that will be of use to him later in the sequel. And given that they've seen how Mario and Luigi handled Bowser in the original movie, they must have felt confident enough to allow them to live on their own in the Mushroom Kingdom as the Super Mario Brothers. This is the first half of my own plot for the sequel. If you like it so far, feel free to show that you like it with the like button. For the second half, I'll share what will be happening in the Mushroom Kingdom in the meantime. In the original movie, we actually had two back-to-back conflicts there. The first one starts fairly in the beginning. Luigi gets separated from Mario, so now it's up to Mario to rescue him. The other conflict is Bowser's looming threat over the Mushroom Kingdom, which develops as the movie progresses. In my story for the sequel, I follow the same idea. The conflict that I first mentioned was Baby Yoshi's separation from his tribe. Since we can already confirm that a Yoshi egg is currently in Brooklyn, that will serve as the initial conflict for the sequel. Meanwhile, as for the second conflict that builds up over time, I can see Bowser, Peach, and Kamek having important roles. It can work like this. As Kamek is pretty much Bowser's right-hand man with his own abilities, I imagine he will be the one to release Bowser from the cage. Given that he was pretty much the mastermind in Yoshi's Island for SNES and DS, this is how he will also have an important role here too. Since Bowser still sims for Peach as he's well known for, it'd be no surprise if he were to go after her again. Since having Peach comply against her will didn't work, I can see Bowser being more forceful now. When we have the bros venture to the Yoshi tribe, let's say Peach stays behind because she needs to watch Bowser, or attend to some other deed as leader of her kingdom. Since Bowser is already in her castle, and if Kamek frees him from imprisonment undetected, they could just attempt to capture Peach right then and there. Since Kamek uses some kind of magic to make baby Bowser ginormous in the original Yoshi's Island game, maybe that could be how he's able to quickly capture Peach. I imagine she and her Toad guards would have one huge, no pun intended, problem catching them off guard, no pun intended. Now that Peach is in trouble, it's up to Mario, Luigi, and friends to rescue her. I can see the final fight involving the brothers, Yoshis, and Toads all fighting against a giant Bowser, as Mario will be the one destined to rescue Peach. Maybe he'll be able to use another power-up that we haven't seen in the original movie. If it's the Mega Mushroom, I hope the battle between a giant Mario and Bowser goes better than the one from the Super Mario Bros. Super Show.
It's like looking in a fat mirror.
And with that, we have ourselves a theoretical plot for the Super Mario Bros. Movie 2. It starts where we left off at the end of the original film. Baby Yoshi will hatch beneath the streets of Brooklyn, while Mario, Luigi, and Bowser are already in the Mushroom Kingdom. The initial conflict involves the journey to reunite Baby Yoshi with the rest of his kind. Meanwhile, Bowser and Kamek will hatch. I'm on a roll with these jokes, and I am sorry. Anyway, they'll plan out and launch their attack on the kingdom to capture Peach. As Bowser goes from small and trapped to stronger and more powerful than ever before, the Mario brothers gain the strength needed to fight him throughout most of the movie. This time, it's really more like an all-out war between Mario and his allies versus Bowser and his army. Even though that's the gist of a potential continuation of the story, I still kept thinking about how Baby Yoshi could possibly be important to the sequel if he didn't have enough spotlight already. I had another idea starting from the point when Baby Yoshi first hatched. What if instead he didn't go through the warp pipe? Baby Yoshi would probably just try to eat everything or cause mayhem somehow in Brooklyn. Of course, his destructive personality wouldn't go unnoticed by at least somebody. I imagine Mario's dad would find or catch Baby Yoshi somehow, and by looking at him, he would recall the buried memories of Yoshi's who rescued his young sons. That would also pave way for us to eventually learn about his parents' backstory. Or what if Luigi formed some kind of bond with Baby Yoshi, similar to that one episode of the Super Mario Bros. Super Show? Let's be focused on the part where we had the Mario brothers reaching the Yoshi tribe. Say Luigi stays with the Yoshis when Mario takes off to visit their parents. In that time, he ought to get acquainted with the rest of the Yoshis. That connection eventually leads to the Yoshi tribe helping Mario fight against Bowser. Luigi and a strengthening Baby Yoshi will have important roles leading the Yoshi army. Or what if Peach decides to accompany Mario in returning Baby Yoshi? We don't really know if the Yoshis running in the first movie actually takes place on Yoshi's Island or not. I kinda wanna say it doesn't. This story could just acknowledge the first Yoshi's Island game, meaning that the Yoshis will be shocked to see Mario and Luigi. Or if it acknowledges Yoshi's Island DS, maybe the tribe will also acknowledge Baby Peach somehow. Either way, Bowser could instead get his revenge in the Mushroom Kingdom while Peach and the brothers are gone. Since this is all theoretical, anything can happen. But I'd like to know how you guys would think the sequel will go. What do you think the main conflict will be? What do you think will happen to Baby Yoshi? Let me know in the comments below. I'm not a writer or officially part of the decision-making team on behalf of Nintendo or Illumination. I'm just a huge Mario fan. The credits prove that the official team that put together the story for the original movie consists of a lot of people. Since I'm just an individual who came up with an idea, I imagine that my story for the second movie has a lot of plot holes and things that wouldn't really work. In hindsight, there are a few issues I've noticed so far with my current draft. One is the fact that it doesn't really involve much Donkey Kong. Sometimes to make way for new important characters, the option of reducing or completely eliminating the role of previously important characters was used in movies before. In my theoretical Mario movie sequel, I didn't see much of a role for DK. As for Toad, I didn't get rid of him entirely. He still plays a supportive role. I can imagine he would have really tried his best to protect Peach from Bowser's surprise attack, only to end up failing and upset about it. He'd be the one to inform Mario that Peach was kidnapped while he was gone. But because of his disappointment, Toad would gain the determination to lead the Toad Army in Peach's absence to get her back. And speaking of Peach again, we learned in the original movie that Peach's earliest memory was arriving in the Mushroom Kingdom at a really young age. If the sequel was to acknowledge Yoshi's Island DS, which involved baby Peach aiding the Yoshis, then it definitely would have taken place after this memory. Even as a child, if Peach remembers how she got to the Mushroom Kingdom, then she definitely would recall journeying with the Yoshis and baby Mario to save baby Luigi. Yet again, Peach is still a baby here, so maybe most of those memories got buried. If babies helped Yoshis on an action-packed adventure, I'd imagine they'd also get tired and fall asleep at some point. I don't know. One last thing is, if I had Yoshis remember baby Mario and Luigi, then Kamek would definitely be able to recall Luigi. Of course, we didn't see him surprised or confused in the first movie during the scene when Bowser is interrogating Luigi. I can't easily assume Kamek's age, but if that's the same Kamek who raised Bowser, then he must be up there in age and his memory isn't so great. Or the Kamek that captured Luigi was an older relative of this Kamek. Again, anything is possible. All in all, it's still too early to tell exactly how the sequel to the Super Mario Bros. Movie will actually go, given that it's only been a few months since the original was first released in the US. The official writers may or may not even have another story in the works yet. But even so, I imagine I didn't hit the nail on the head entirely with my story, if at all. But again, what do you guys think? Does Yoshi's Island have the potential to impact the plot of the next movie? Or would they, along with other titles, simply be referenced on occasion as Easter eggs? Comment your thoughts down below on how you think the second movie can turn out. It'll be interesting to hear how accurate our guesses are before we get any more insight through future trailers. Also, feel free to add on or edit my story. Again, I'm just one person who, on my own, came up with all of this because of some inspiration I got from your comments in my previous video focused on the Mario movie. Feel free to use my story as a prompt to write your own. Or, if the sequel will involve a completely new story, how would that go? I really don't think the plot of the first movie was solely based on any particular Mario game. It's really a brand new story. If the official development team can do that and make it work really well, so can you and your stories. I'd be happy to read what you got to share in the comments. Thank you all so much again for listening to my voice on the Super Mario Bros. Movie in this video as well as my last one. Hit like, subscribe, and the bell to help me reach my development goal of 200 subscribers by New Year's 2024. Until next time everyone, I'm Altasauce.